Welcome to GRE Snacks, snackable episodes about the GRE, GMAT, and graduate school admissions. I'm Tyler, the founder of Achievable, and we have an affordable GRE course that includes everything you need to ace your GRE, including a full textbook, videos on key topics, tons of GRE questions backed by our memory enhancing algorithm, a built in study planner and essay grader, and full length practice exams. You can try it out for free at achievable.me. See if you like it. Now, let's get started. Today, we've got Mike Bergin with us from Chariot Learning. Mike, I'd love if you could introduce yourself.
Mike Bergin, a proud test prep professional. And by that, I mean that I'm somebody who's been engaged at the intersection of education and admissions for over 30 years. And I love to explore in every capacity ways to support learners and teachers alike in the process of earning their best performance when it counts. So I am the president of Chariot Learning, which is a test prep organization based in upstate New York, from where we serve the entire world. I am a publisher. I am the co host of the Test and the Rest podcast, which is a podcast on education, learning, teaching, admissions. I am the creator of the Test Bright SAT ACT curriculum system. I am the publisher of the Roots to Words free word of the day, the College Eagle newsletter, the Tutor the newsletter. I'm the founding president and president emeritus of the National Test Prep Association. Basically, I just like to talk about education and learning all day long.
That's great. Yeah, well, and here we are to do just that, right? I wanted to talk today about taking GRE practice tests effectively, right? And, I feel like this is a topic that we've covered before. I'm interested to get your perspective on it. I think just general, like, effective practice test taking advice and then also applying it to the GRE. Why don't we start out just like broadly with how you approach practice tests really for any exam? Just like what is sort of general advice that you have for people?
So let's go like big picture, right? If you're
Hmm.
preparing to take a test, you need to practice taking that test under testing conditions, okay?
Hmm.
Imagine if you were a singer and you were getting ready for a big recital, okay, or a big concert. You would, if you were a professional, practice the entire set with the
Hmm.
music that you will be using, whether it's live or recorded performances. You would practice every single song. You would practice your intros, your outros, your segues between songs, everything. Like, it makes perfect sense to people. If you're an athlete and you're getting ready for a big championship game, your coaches are going to run you through every aspect of playing, including full scrimmages. There's no way around that, and nobody who is an athlete or performer would ever suggest you should just get out there and wing it if it counts. And yet, at the same time, people approach standardized tests and be like, "Well, I don't have time to take a test. I'm too busy. I'm doing homework. I have a job. I want to hang out with friends." Like, whatever. Like, they have a million reasons why doesn't make sense for them to do it, and yet it makes perfect sense because testing, like any sport or skill, is very coachable, very practicable, and requires attention to lots of little details that don't seem to be relevant to your performance, but actually have outsized impact in terms of how you do when it counts. So the first
Hmm.
step, commit to it, accept that if you're going to take the test, you are going to have to take practice tests. That is not taking practice tests is not the only form of preparation. It does not replace learning what's on the test, developing strategies, managing time. Like, there's a million aspects of performance that are not cured by just taking tests without any other support. But if you're not taking practice tests, you can't fairly be said to be doing the best test prep.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and I mean, the way that I think about tests, practice tests, is that they're like anchor points, right? And they kind of can serve as like checkpoints for you to understand, how good am I at this really? What are the parts that I could improve? What are the parts that, I basically need to practice more?
Agree
And
with
I
that
think that's
idea,
probably
but
the
I
most
also
valuable part of it.
Yeah, but I think that they're more than just checkpoints, meaning, like, people put a lot of stock into diagnostic testing. The
Hmm.
diagnostic test tells you something about where you are in that moment, but it doesn't answer all the reasons as to why you got certain questions wrong. It doesn't tell you whether
Hmm.
they're content based, doesn't tell you whether they're process based or psychology based. That comes with learning and review and all the other pieces. To me, they're not just touch points. If you take a look at the way any class is conducted in, grades kindergarten through 12, or once you get into college or even beyond, tests are part of learning, okay? Teachers administer
Hmm.
tests to assess knowledge, but also to encourage the development of the knowledge. Students have to study to conduct retrieval practice in order to
Hmm.
learn to do well on tests, and tests themselves are forms of retrieval practice. So like they all tie into learning science, which is to say, again, if you're not testing, you're not learning. And I know that in some classes we're like, okay, well, the paper is a form of learning. That's fine. But there has to be an assessment that forces you to master retention, retrieval, synthesis, like all of those components of really understanding what you're doing. And in standardized testing, the test is the thing that you're doing. You learn a lot from testing. You learn a lot from reviewing your tests.
Hmm. Yeah, and let's talk about that. I mean, what is the way that students, when they're preparing for the GRE, should be using practice tests and how to maximize their score over, let's say, 2 or 3 months, which is like a typical study time?
So I'm going to leave the specific study plan to you as to say when exactly should you import the ETS tests, but I think we can acknowledge they are a limited resource. I wouldn't even use them for diagnostic testing. That's how valuable they are for a student that's really committed over 2 to 3 months to earning his or her best score. You're
Hmm.
planning for full practice tests and test review leading up to the exam, whether that's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a full month. And the last tests you should be taking are the best tests. And the best tests, as far as knowing what's on the GRE, are official GRE exams. So
Hmm.
we want to save them. We want to use other material, combinations of official and third party material, achievable resources, any kind of resources that are vetted, that if we're working with instructors, they know what they're doing. If we're doing a self directed program that help us master material in a timely way, we're focusing on starting with skill building, starting with practice items, meaning test questions, working our way up perhaps to passages and sections, but making sure that we are building in time for full practice testing every week with full review between tests before the time we take the test. And what's great about being able to take an exam that you can schedule basically any day is that you can look at your calendar and be like, well, I have 3 weddings in October, but I have to take the GRE in November. Well, that's not a good idea, right? Make sure
Hmm.
that you plan your test for a time when you can practice effectively leading up to it.
Yeah, and focus on it, right? I think that's one of the biggest things is realistically, this should be kind of your only hobby for this period of time.
It's a small
Like,
period. It's not a lot to ask.
yeah.
And you're 100% correct in that if you try to fit it in when you have other obligations, then you're going to struggle everywhere. You're not going to do your best.
Yeah, and so then let's talk just a bit. I know that you didn't want to get into the specifics of when to use each test, but like basically talk to me about like some general advice you have for, how many practice tests should you be taking? Like should you be taking one a week or one a month or whatever, and also kind of how you would use them to do the loop. Like that's kind of what we advise people is we say take a practice test, figure out what you're bad at, go practice those things in addition to everything else, just practice them more, and then take another practice test, and it kind of gives you a feedback loop, right?
I think the problem is that we
Oh,
don't need full tests to find out some of that information, especially at the beginning. And by the time we're towards the end of the process, ideally we've shrunk the pool of what we're not good at down to a
Mhm.
very small segment that we can study, I feel that practice tests are best used for putting it all together at once, okay? I'm thinking of the
Mhm.
dress rehearsal model, right? Like again, if you only have 3 chances and, just like say there are 3 what's the current state of the official GRE tests? How many quality tests are there?
Yeah, I think 3. It
3.
might be more, but I think that's a good I don't
So
think
imagine
most people take more than 3 even if they wanted to get a certain score, right?
But if you wanted, like, if we're talking ideally, because there's no perfect number of tests, there are 7 official SATs in the Blue Book app for students that are taking that test, and I know students that blow through that and they need lots of third-party tests. With the ACT, there was a time when, we had access to, almost as many practice tests as a person could want. Say that number was 20 or more, and I still had students
Mm.
that used them up. On the LSAT side, are there not something like 75 official LSATs out there? There's a massive
Yeah, it's
number
a
of
lot.
LSATs, and some students chew through all of them. So I would never say how many tests are enough to get your goal. The tests
Mhm.
tell you how close you're getting to your goal. You need to parcel out your prep so that you don't squander good resources and you give yourself enough time,
Yeah.
all things being equal, right? Like if you want to get this one and done, you want to be one and done on your GRE, you give yourself 3 months, you spend the first 2 months really focusing on skill building, on extracting maximum value from the resources you're using, whether you're self-directed or working with an instructor, to be as strong as possible in every section of the test. Your practice tests are the times when you're importing other elements of performance, not just do you know the material, but can you execute the strategy for every question consistently, meaning within the allotted time and do it every time without making mistakes? Can you do section after section after section in that chunk of time? Can you block out distractions? Can you manage your energy? Those are the elements of testing that you're not going to learn by doing 20 minutes of study on your own a day. That's what you learn when you sit down and you take a timed test at the exact time that you're going to be scheduled to take your official test in conditions that replicate it, giving yourselves none of the advantages of not being in the moment. And that tells you all the other factors you need to fix before the real thing.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think that you just highlighted one of the most common mistakes that people make using practice tests, which is they don't do it under the same time constraints and other constraints as you would on the real test day, right? Like the two big ones are obviously people having way more time than they're actually allotted on the real
Mhm.
test. And the second one is not doing it all back to back. So,
Right.
the endurance factor.
Oh, yeah, people do all kind
And
and they have all kinds of reasons, and sometimes those reasons are good reasons, but it doesn't matter, okay? Performance, it doesn't care, right? Either you're
mhm,
ready to do your best in the moment or you're not, and I find very often the way we prepare ourselves to do our best when it counts is to not just overcome momentary challenges to practice, but embrace them. And by that, I mean, like,
mhm,
I'll often advise students to take their final practice tests outside their home. Very often, test takers have a place where they take their practice tests, where they control the environment. They lock themselves in a bedroom or a basement or whatever it is, and it's perfectly quiet and nobody's interrupting them. And that's not like test day at all. When you're taking a
mhm.
test in a room, there are other people, there are potential impediments to focus or confidence, like whatever it is, get out in the world, be ready for that final element of chaos that can sometimes work against you. Uh, I'm always, I mean, I know I sound a little over the top, right? I sound like I want test takers to micromanage every single aspect of performance as closely as possible so that no element of the test works against them when it matters. And I'm proud to say that, yes, that is exactly how I feel. The same way that, if the coach of my favorite football team misses even a single detail as in any aspect of the game, then I'm shouting for him to be fired. I'm in this regard a coach, right? And if you want to know how to do your best, well, you play like you practice. If you do not practice effectively, you're not going to magically score much better than you ever did in practice. So when we talk about practice tests, we're talking about the very stuff of preparation. Your practice tests are golden, every single one. Make every single one valuable, extract maximum value, and kind of going back to what you said, Taylor, that a lot of people preparing for the GRE might not ever take more than 3 practice tests. Well, then make those 3 tests really count. The more you waste your tests, the more tests you ultimately have to take. The more you squander your preparation opportunities, the longer you'll be prepping. But if you make the most of each test and really use them to maximum effect, then you will see the results.
Right. Yeah, and it all comes down to really just taking them as seriously as you would take the real test, right? I think that's kind of like the underlying undercurrent of what you're saying. Well, then, is there anything else that we haven't covered yet that you would just want to have as sort of closing remarks here about
Just
how
that
to
it,
effectively practice?
sure, there's a certain element of getting ready for test day that we have to we have to kind of go over the top in making sure we're ready for things. And that means like packing everything that you need. So imagine there's, you're going to eat a certain breakfast on test day because you do your best work on that with that in your stomach. And you're going to have a certain snack and you're going to manage your caffeine because you don't want to be too jittery. Well, then do that on test day too. Practice what you're gonna wear. Like, you can practice every element of what you're going to be doing, what you eat, how much sleep you get, what time you wake up, what you do before the test. Are you gonna do a quick workout because that wakes you up? Are you gonna read a book? Like all of those things, explore them too. Really get into the space. I mean, every test that a student takes, every student that a test taker takes, represents a range of possibilities. Okay. And so that's, whatever your score is, there's a margin of error where on some days, based on things that are happening or your headspace, you might do worse. And on some, you might do better. Always push
Mhm.
yourself to maximize that so that if there's a range, you're pushing to the far right, the best possible outcome. If your best score is this, you should be striving to get that because you know that you took care of every element of performance, whether it was academic or technical. That's going to do a lot
Mhm.
for your confidence. The more of these pieces that you manage in practice, the less you're going to have to be worried about on test day. And if you're not as worried, you're going to do better.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. This has been GRE Snacks, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Mike Bergin from Chariot Learning. And Achievable has a great online GRE course that you can try for free at achievable.me.